Welcome to our deep dive, and today we're exploring After the Storm. But here's the thing. This book, it's not your typical author situation. Imagine this, a spirit sharing her wisdom, dictating it to a human. That's how this book came to be. A spirit named Joana de Angelis connecting with the Brazilian medium Divaldo Franco.
And it gets even more interesting. Joana de Angelis, she's not just any spirit. She's described as, well, having lived multiple lives, even experiencing life as a 17th century nun. Can you believe that? And now she's like sharing her insights, her perspective on the world, the challenges we face today in the 21st century.
Wow, talk about a unique perspective, right? It seems like she covers, well, everything. You've got natural disasters, and then the complexities of family life, even those really big issues, like crime and addiction.
It's almost as if she's saying like, hey, humanity, been there, done that, and let me tell you, you're in for a wild ride.
So is she saying we're, like, in a storm right now?
Exactly. A period of upheaval, that's what she calls it. And she points to technology as a major factor. You'd think all this progress, all this advancement would lead to happiness, but she's suggesting it's actually, well, creating more unrest. Moral, economic, and social unrest. I mean, think about it. We're more connected than ever before, but are we really more fulfilled?
That's a really good point. Makes you think about the trade-offs we make, in the name of progress. And it's interesting that you mentioned how the book was inspired, at least in part, by that real-life tragedy, the fire in Sao Paulo.
Yeah, that tragedy, it seems to have been this, like, wake-up call. It prompted Joana de Angelis to really address these big questions, these fundamental questions about the state of humanity. She even talks about a contempt of faith in our modern world, the idea that, well, blind faith is kind of given way to skepticism.
Yeah, I can see that. It feels like these days so many people are questioning their beliefs, myself included. So where does she stand on that? Does she want us to, like, go back to just blindly believing?
Not at all. Actually, she advocates for something she calls rational faith, which is kind of cool.
Sure.
It's about finding a balance, grounding your faith in evidence, but also like embracing spiritual understanding. It's about
Right.
finding that sweet spot between just accepting things blindly and dismissing everything outright.
So it's about engaging with your spirituality, but with like a critical mind, right? Not just following blindly, but really understanding the why behind those beliefs.
Exactly. And this leads to another super interesting concept she talks about, mental pollution. It's like she's saying, hey, it's not just the air and water we're polluting, it's our minds too.
Okay, now you've got me really intrigued. Tell me more about this mental pollution. What exactly is it and how does it impact us?
Well, she describes it as all those negative thoughts, those toxic emotions, those limiting beliefs that we kind of harbor within ourselves. All that negativity we encounter, whether it's from inside us or from the world around us, it takes a toll.
And she's suggesting that this inner pollution, it spills out and affects society as a whole.
Exactly. Think about it, all the anger, the fear, the division we're seeing in the world right now. It's like she's suggesting that it stems in part from this collective mental pollution, like we're all swimming in it.
Wow, that's a powerful image. So it's not just about recycling and reducing our carbon footprint. It's about like cleaning up our mental and emotional act as well.
Exactly. It's all connected, and it doesn't stop there. Joana de Angelis also dives into the idea of passion, but like how it's a double-edged sword.
Oh, definitely. Passion can be such a powerful driving force, but we've all seen how easily it can turn destructive.
Right. And she uses these really interesting examples to draw the parallels between figures like Galileo and Hitler. She argues that passion was a driving force for both of them, but obviously with very different outcomes. It's fascinating.
So it's not about suppressing passion, it's about like harnessing it constructively.
Exactly. It's about directing that energy in a way that's beneficial, It's like Joana de Angelis is saying that passion without direction, without a moral compass, can easily lead us down the wrong path.
Which makes me think about her views on family. Another area where passion can run high, for better or worse.
Oh, absolutely. Family is huge for her. She really emphasizes its importance as the foundation of society. But she's also realistic, She acknowledges that family life isn't always sunshine and roses. She talks about those tough challenges, like dealing with ungrateful children and the responsibility of parents to love and care for their kids, even when it's really hard.
That's a tough one. It's easy to love unconditionally when things are good, but what about when those buttons are being pushed? How do you maintain that unconditional love then?
Right. And she offers a really intriguing perspective on this. She suggests that sometimes those kids that are, a bit more challenging they might actually be carrying karmic debts from past lives. It's like
Mhm.
they're here to learn certain lessons, and sometimes, well, that learning process can be a bit messy.
So instead of getting caught up in blame and resentment, it's about approaching these challenges with compassion and understanding.
Exactly. It's about remembering that everyone is on their own unique journey, and sometimes those journeys intersect in ways that are challenging, to say the least.
And she doesn't shy away from those tough topics either, like when she talks about sexuality.
Oh no, she dives right in. She tackles the complexities of sexual identity, desire, and all the challenges people face in navigating these aspects of themselves. It's clear that she sees sexuality as this powerful force that needs to be approached with, like awareness and responsibility.
Which is interesting because in a world that often seems obsessed with instant gratification, she's advocating for self-control, a more mindful approach to sexuality.
Absolutely. And she's not afraid to bring in the spiritual aspect either. She encourages prayer and reflection, urging people to view sex as something sacred, as more than just a physical act.
That's definitely a different perspective from what we often hear these days.
For sure. But it's a perspective that encourages self-reflection, a deeper understanding of our relationship with sexuality. It's about asking ourselves, what does it mean to approach sexuality in a way that honors both my physical and spiritual self?
That's a powerful question. And from there, she delves into even heavier topics: crime, perversion, violence. These are issues that have always been with us, and she seems to be saying they're not just social problems, but spiritual ones too.
Absolutely. She goes beyond the surface. She's suggesting that criminal behavior often stems from something deeper, like a spiritual unrest or even influences from past lives. It's like she's saying, hurt people hurt people.
So it's like she's saying it's not as simple as, just locking people up. Like she's advocating for something different, more compassion in the justice system.
Yeah, exactly. Joanna DeAngelis, she believes that even criminals, even people who've done terrible things, they still deserve compassion, a chance at redemption. It's not about punishment for her. It's about rehabilitation, right?
Hmm.
Addressing those root causes we talked about. That's what true justice looks like to her.
That makes me think about her stance on drug addiction. Is she saying that's a spiritual issue too? Not just a societal problem?
Definitely, that's a huge part of it for her. She sees drug use as this symptom of a deeper emptiness, a spiritual emptiness. Like people are turning to these substances to numb their pain, right? To fill a void inside themselves, but they're looking in the wrong place. It's like they're seeking solace in these external things instead of dealing with those underlying spiritual issues.
So what's the answer then? How do we combat that, both as individuals and as a society? What does she suggest?
Well, Joanna DeAngelis, she's all about a multifaceted approach. She really emphasizes the importance of education, spiritual awareness, strong family bonds, and like responsible guidance. It's about creating a society where people feel supported, valued, connected to something bigger than themselves.
So it's about addressing those root causes, right? Like if we create a world where people don't feel the need to escape through drugs, then we're actually getting somewhere.
Exactly. It's about getting to the heart of the issue, not just treating the symptoms. And this kind of connects with another fascinating thing she talks about, the idea that misfortune, what we perceive as bad luck, can actually be this opportunity for growth, for spiritual growth.
That's kind of hard to wrap your head around sometimes, especially when you're in the middle of something difficult, right? It's not always easy to see the opportunity when you're facing hardship.
I hear you. It's definitely a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
But she's not saying it's easy, just that it's possible. It's like those challenges we face, whether it's illness, loss, setbacks, they're not punishments. They're more like opportunities for learning, for our souls to evolve. Like life is presenting us with these situations to help us grow, to help us evolve spiritually.
So it's about finding the lesson in the struggle, trying to see that silver lining.
Exactly, that's it. It's about finding that silver lining, that chance for growth,
Yeah.
even in the midst of all the chaos and difficulty. And, this kind of leads us to another challenging topic that Joanna DeAngelis tackles.
Yeah, that's about as complex and sensitive as it gets. There are very strong opinions on both sides of that issue. So how does she approach it? How does she look at it from a spiritual perspective?
Well, Joanna DeAngelis is very clear in her stance. She condemns abortion, sees it as a violation of this spiritual principle, the sanctity of life. She believes that life begins at conception and that every soul has this right to experience life on earth.
But doesn't she also say there are exceptions, like situations where that stance might shift a bit?
Yeah, you're right, she does. She recognizes that there are rare cases, very specific situations, where the mother's life is in danger. And in those cases, she suggests that The decision, it has to be made with a lot of consideration, with a deep understanding of the karmic implications involved.
It's a reminder that these decisions, they're not easy, and they should never be taken lightly. There's a lot to consider on every level. And what about marriage and divorce? Does she address that too?
Oh, definitely. Joanna de Angelis has a lot to say about relationships. For her, marriage is sacred. It's this bond, a spiritual contract between two souls choosing to walk a path together. And she emphasizes those core values, like commitment, forgiveness, understanding. Those are crucial for navigating the challenges that inevitably come up in married life.
So it's not about finding that perfect person, the one who checks all the boxes. It's more about choosing to grow together, even when things are tough.
Exactly. She's all about that journey together. She stresses that real love, true love, it runs deeper than just passion, that initial spark. It's about shared values, mutual respect, a deep, deep spiritual connection. And while she acknowledges that sometimes divorce is necessary, she encourages couples to try everything else first, to really exhaust all other options before ending the marriage.
It's about recognizing the weight of that commitment, the sacredness of that bond. Even if the relationship has become strained, it deserves that respect.
Absolutely. And this respect for life, it extends to her views on euthanasia as well.
So she's against the idea of, ending a life prematurely, even in cases of terminal illness.
That's right. Joanna de Angelis, she believes that interfering with death, with that natural process of dying, it robs the soul of valuable lessons, karmic resolutions that need to happen naturally. She sees death as a transition, not an end. And even in those difficult moments, those moments of suffering, she believes there's an opportunity for spiritual growth, for purification.
It's definitely a very different way of looking at death and dying, very different from what we usually hear.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's a perspective that encourages us to embrace life, the fullness of it, from birth to death, and to view each stage as a chance for learning, for our souls to evolve.
And would you say that ties into her stance on capital punishment, reviews on the death penalty?
100%. Joanna de Angelis, she's totally against the death penalty. She believes that it only creates more violence. It perpetuates this cycle of violence and hatred, and that prevents spiritual progress, both for the individual and for society as a whole.
So even when it comes to terrible crimes, she's advocating for compassion, for rehabilitation, instead of just revenge.
Yes, absolutely. She reminds us that everyone has the potential for change, even those who have done really awful things. Everyone deserves that chance at redemption.
It's about breaking free from that cycle of violence, choosing a path of compassion and understanding, even in the face of such darkness. Which actually makes me think about her insights into mental illness. Does she have a spiritual perspective on those challenges as well?
Oh, absolutely. Joanna de Angelis sees mental illness as more than just like a chemical imbalance in the brain. She sees it as a reflection of past experiences, things like past life trauma or spiritual imbalance. It adds this whole other layer to our understanding.
So she's suggesting that mental health, those struggles, they often have roots that go deeper beyond just this current lifetime.
Precisely. And she even gets specific, linking certain conditions like paralysis or mental retardation to actions in past lives, which adds a whole new dimension to how we understand these challenges.
It's a different lens, that's for sure, encouraging us to consider this possibility of a soul's journey, how it unfolds across lifetimes.
Exactly. It's about the bigger picture for her. And, that leads us to another topic, a sensitive one, that Joanna de Angelis discusses: suicide.
That's a tough one, a topic that brings up a lot of difficult emotions, but it's something that affects so many people. What kind of insights does she offer into the spiritual impact of suicide?
Joanna de Angelis, she doesn't sugarcoat it. She portrays suicide as this grave mistake, one that carries lasting consequences for the soul. She believes that when someone takes their own life, it disrupts the natural order, it delays the soul's progress.
So it's not about judging those who've taken their own lives, it's more about understanding the weight of that choice, the spiritual implications.
Exactly. She emphasizes that. She acknowledges the immense pain, the despair that can lead someone to that point. But she also stresses that there's always hope, always a reason to hold on, to keep going.
It's about clinging to that hope, even when it feels impossible, remembering that life is precious, a gift. And speaking of difficult topics, Joanna de Angelis also talks about war and conflict, right?
She does. She does. She recognizes that war has always been a part of human history, often acting as this catalyst for change, for progress. But she doesn't glorify it. Ultimately, she sees war as barbaric, as a failure to embrace our higher selves, our spiritual potential.
So she's acknowledging the complexity of war, the role it's played in history, but ultimately she's calling for a more evolved approach, a more peaceful way of resolving conflict.
Yes, exactly. She believes that true peace, lasting peace, can only come when we address the things that fuel conflict, things like fear, greed, hatred, and when we choose to embrace love, compassion, understanding, that's the path.
It's about recognizing that shared humanity, right? Choosing to build bridges, not walls.
Beautifully put. And this brings us to a really interesting point that Joanna de Angelis brings up about, well, the prevalence of false beliefs, superstitions, even in this day and age.
Yeah, it's strange when you think about it, right? We live in this time of science and technology, and yet these old beliefs, these practices, they're still around, even making a comeback. Why do you think that is? Why does she think that is?
That's a great question. Joanna de Angelis attributes it to spiritual immaturity, which is interesting. She suggests that, yeah, we've made amazing strides technologically, but spiritually we haven't quite caught up. And that creates this void. And that void, well, it gets filled with fear, uncertainty, the allure of the unknown.
So we have all this technology, all this advancement, but we're not necessarily equipped to handle it, spiritually speaking.
That's the idea. And this spiritual immaturity, it shows up in different ways. A fascination with the occult, a desire for quick fixes, being easily swayed by those who claim to have special powers or knowledge.
So it's about discernment then, right? Being able to tell the difference,
Oh.
grounding ourselves in truth, in what really matters, and not getting swept up in the sensationalism, the empty promises.
Yes, discernment is key. And she cautions against relying too heavily on external rituals or practices, emphasizing that real spiritual growth, it has to come from within.
It's about doing that inner work, cultivating that deeper understanding, developing our own moral compass.
You got it. And this ties into her discussion of exorcism, which I think is really fascinating.
Now, that's an interesting topic. What's her take on the whole idea of demons, evil spirits, all of that?
Well, Joanna de Angelis, she challenges that traditional view of demons as these separate beings, these external entities. She suggests that what we often see as demonic influences are actually manifestations of our own darkness, our own unresolved issues, our traumas, negative thought patterns.
So it's not about battling some outside force. It's about looking inward, confronting and healing those darker parts of ourselves.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's about taking responsibility, owning those shadows. She believes that true liberation, true freedom from spiritual oppression, it comes from that inner work, from moral development, from aligning ourselves with the light, with our higher selves.
It's about reclaiming our own power, choosing a path of love and understanding, even when it's hard.
Powerful, right? And, this leads us to a core part of Joanna de Angelis' teachings. Her perspective on death and the afterlife, what happens after we die.
Yeah, that's a topic that fascinates a lot of people and maybe even frightens some. What does she have to say about it? What insights does she offer into the whole mystery of death?
Joanna de Angelis, she presents a different way of looking at it. She reframes death as a transition, as just a natural part of the soul's journey. It's not an ending, but a change, a passage into a new realm of existence.
So she's saying that life goes on, it just changes form.
That's the idea. And she offers a lot of comfort to those who are grieving, those who've lost loved ones.
Yeah.
She wants them to know that their loved ones aren't gone. They're just existing in a different way, in a different form.
It's a beautiful way of looking at it. It takes away that fear, that sense of finality, and replaces it with hope, with this idea of continuation.
It's comforting, for sure. And it really speaks to her overall message, this message of hope and empowerment. Because even though the world can be a difficult place, full of challenges, Joanna de Angelis wants us to remember that we have the power to choose our path, to create a better future, to live lives full of purpose, full of meaning.
It is comforting. It really is to think about life continuing, in another realm. But if our loved ones are still out there, what does that mean for us? For those of us still here, what are we supposed to be doing? What's our role in all of this?
That's where it gets really interesting, because Joanna de Angelis, she doesn't just want to comfort us. She wants us to take action. She challenges us to become what she calls laborers of the Lord, to actively participate in making the world a better place.
So it's not enough to just hope for a better future. We have to actually do something. We have to put in the work. What does that even look like, practically speaking?
Well, she's a big believer in self-improvement. She says it all starts with us, with each individual looking inward, addressing our own flaws, working on ourselves, developing those virtues, and really aligning ourselves with love, with compassion, with service.
So not about preaching to other people, not about telling them what to do, but about being an example, living those values, and letting that speak for itself.
Exactly. It's about embodying those higher principles, showing, not just telling. And it's not just about individual transformation either. It's bigger than that. She talks about the importance of coming together, of working together to create that better future.
So it's about recognizing that we're all connected, part of something bigger.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, right? Joanna DeAngelis, she's all about that interconnectedness. She sees humanity as this spiritual family and encourages us to support each other on this journey, to share our knowledge, our experiences, our unique gifts.
It's about collaboration, recognizing that we can achieve so much more when we work together, support each other.
Exactly. And she's clear that true service, true labor in the service of a higher purpose, it's not about getting credit. It's not about accolades. It's about acting from this place of love, humility, a genuine desire to make a difference, to contribute something positive.
It's about those everyday acts of kindness, right? Those small gestures, those moments of compassion that might seem insignificant, but they can have this ripple effect. They can touch countless lives in ways we might never even realize.
Exactly. And she acknowledges that this path, this journey of spiritual growth and service, it's not always easy. There will be struggles, setbacks, moments when you just want to give up. But she urges us to keep going, to persevere, to never give up on that faith, that determination, because the rewards, they're immeasurable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into After the Storm, we're left with this sense of hope, a sense of purpose, this renewed energy to create a better future for ourselves and for generations to come. And Joanna DeAngelis, she leaves us with this powerful message, this reminder that no matter what storms we face in our own lives, we're never alone. We have the strength, the wisdom, that incredible capacity for love to get through anything and to come out stronger on the other side.
She really emphasizes that inner strength we all possess. She reminds us that we're spiritual beings on this incredible journey, capable of amazing things: growth, love, compassion. And the choices we make every single day, they matter. They shape not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us.
Yeah.
And they impact future generations as well. So as we navigate life's complexities, let's remember her words. Let's strive to be those beacons of light, hope, and healing. The world needs it now more than ever.
Those are powerful words to carry with us. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it inspiring and that it's given you some tools to weather your own storms with courage, compassion, and an unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit.